Hi, I'm Andy Dorsch.
And I'm Mike Ostertag, and this is the Second Section Podcast.
All right, Mike. That was pretty good.
That was a great 24 seconds. That was like
good.
the best 24 seconds we've ever
it.
had.
We're off and running.
Great.
So,
all right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you later.
We're out of here. So this is the Second Section Podcast, and tonight we're going to be talking about the state of model railroading, and we're going to talk about a short line that you can model. Talk about what's on our workbench, and then lastly, give you a pro tip that you can try out on your layouts at home. So, Mike,
yes.
This is our first podcast. This has been a train wreck so far. Do you want to give us the what's on your workbench tonight?
Sure. I've got several things going on. First, I've got my own Facebook page, Farland Terminal Railroad, 1983 to 1985. Hop on over there. I post on there all the time. I'm sure Andy will give you his Facebook stuff here in a little bit. But I've been doing this for some reason. Not sure how well this is going to show up. But I started scratch building an engine house. And when I mean scratch building, I mean it's like started out as styrene sheet.
Yeah.
And it's just basic shapes, structural shapes, things of that nature. I'm working kind of on the roof right now and on the doors. I could go into this. This could take an entire podcast to describe how I'm doing this.
Let's write that down.
What's that?
Let's write that down as a future podcast idea. Yeah, I'm gonna take myself off the big screen here so that people can see what you're doing here. So give me a second here, and I'll swing you over. Maybe
this is awesome.
Yeah, you look good there. Here, so now you're on the big screen.
Look better here.
Yeah, so let's give the folks at home basically a tour of the shop here.
Okay, tour of the shop. All right. I'm modeling this based off of the Escanaba and Lake Superior's Menominee Engine House, which is it's loosely based off of that. It's a former Milwaukee Road engine house. I got the dimensions from Bob Fischella. It's a friend of mine. This is essentially almost quite literally 1/2 in length and 1/2 in width of his shop.
Wow.
Yeah, he gave me the dimensions and I just kind of went with it. And I thought, well, that works. So he scratch built one, but he was smart and he did his 4-sided so you don't have to do the interior.
Yeah, right. So why didn't you put a 4th side on?
The reason I didn't put a 4th side on this is because this is going to be right on the edge of the layout.
Okay.
So when you come into the room, this is going to be the first scene you see is where you pick up your locomotive to start your day. And, I wanted to make sure you had the feel of actually having, you had to go into the engine house, start the engine, do all these things like that, just like you would any other day. Yeah. And so I started building the engine house, and it's, I'm not a structural engineer. So I've had a lot of tips, I've had a lot of help.
Sure.
From people describing, hey, maybe you should think of this, or you should think of this. I've asked people that I know who have done stuff, and this is kind of what I've come up with. A lot of H columns, a lot of C channel, the roof supports there. Those are all Z girders.
Okay.
And then the outside is just basically, I believe it's called metal siding. It is from evergreen. Everything here is from evergreen.
Sure.
So with that, quickly, the doors on the ends, with it being a steel, where am I at? There we go. With being a steel structure, what's really crazy about steel structures is that everybody thinks about them as having either a roll-up door or a garage door or something like that.
Right.
Well, I know somebody who gave me some photos of a Chicago Northwestern engine house in Appleton, Wisconsin, which was the last engine house they built for steam.
Okay.
And it was a steel structure, but had wood bifold doors on it. And I thought, oh, problem solved. So as keeping in, tradition with this whole project, I have some handy dandy little pieces of, I believe this is some V-groove styrene sheet, and some pieces of small C channel, and some other pieces of styrene. And I'm not sure if this is going to show up very well.
Are those hinges there?
These are hinges. Yeah, they're brass hinges. It's kind of hard to see because my computer is washing this out a little bit here. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So perfect. You can see I've got that. These are brass hinges and they operate.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, so you'll be able to actually open the doors and close the doors every time you come in and go to work. Other than that, that's been consuming my whole time. Other than that, I've got my handy dandy little switch engine here that I've been working on a little bit, and relettering cover a open hopper. That's and this I just use rubber stamps and an ink pad.
That's awesome.
That.
Okay. So those look. I don't know if we talked to our viewers before. So that looks a little bigger than HO scale, Mike.
Oh yeah. I failed to mention, I am clinically insane, and I model S scale, which is 1/64th scale. It's not popular. It's very, very difficult to model an S scale. There is probably at best 1/20th or 1/200th the amount of things available than you do in HO scale.
Sure.
But the reason I'm modeling it is because I can actually build without having to buy.
Sure.
So instead of taking things out of a box and stuff that's already pre-done for me, I'm actually building my equipment, a lot of it. So there is, as you can see, there's plenty of ready to run stuff here, and some kits, and there's some brass cabooses up here and a brass boxcar. So, but the main thing is I wanted to build. And, and this has really allowed me to do that, and I'm really happy I made the change, and it's been a lot of fun. Cool. So,
hey, I want to, since I already know, I know what's going on with the inside of that engine house. Can you bring that back, your engine house, back up to the camera there, and maybe show the folks at home here watching along, or just describe what you got going on the floor there. So. That's not your typical floor for an engine house, is it?
Well, I'm going to take this right off.
Now we're talking.
Okay, so I'm going to name drop, seeing as how this is our first podcast.
Yeah.
Boy, I hope he dials into this and sees what I did. I have become friends with Tom Johnson.
Okay.
Who, if many of you out in model railroad land know who that is, he was the owner of the Logansport and Indiana Northern Railroad, which has been in model railroader countless times. And he told me about him, and I got in a conversation, and I asked him about how he did his buildings.
Sure.
And he builds all of his buildings on his workbench and then places them on the layout at a later time and positions them accordingly, and then builds the scenery around that pre-done structure. So I asked him how he did that, and this is how it is. It's a piece of 1/8 inch thick masonite cut to shape.
Yep.
And then, because this is an engine house, I actually hand laid the rails
Nice.
Our handrail, no ties.
No ties.
This is no ties. This is just drilled and spiked directly onto the masonite. And then the floor is, since I wanted a dirt floor.
Yep.
I'm a locomotive engineer for a Canadian National in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. And last summer, I picked up it was dirty and dusty. And I thought, oh, hey, dirt. I could use some dirt. And so this is dirt from the actual railroad. And I just used that for my dirt floor.
Yep.
And I don't have the bottle. Oh, yes, I do have the bottle. Spray tack.
Perfect.
It's for static grass and stuff like that. But I thought, well, if it's good enough for static grass, it's going to hold some dirt.
And just for our viewers out there, Woodland Scenics is not sponsoring this podcast. However, we're open to sponsors. Just throwing that out there right off the first podcast. Right. Shameless plug for sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So then I just decided to I mixed up some oils and some other not oils. I didn't use oils. I used Vallejo airbrush paints. Yeah. And kind of mixed those up a little bit and made the oil stains. Oil stains aren't great. I know that, but it's my first shot at doing it, and it'll suffice once it's on the layout and everything else gets built up around it and stuff.
Sure. So. I mean, Mike, that's fantastic. I mean, first of all, just scratch build, an engine house right off the bat, but the level of detail that you're putting in, especially even just on the floor, it's really incredible.
Yeah, thanks. It's if you don't have a lot of modeling ability, or you don't think you have a lot of modeling ability, you're wrong. Because I've always been that guy that said, I can never do that. And all you have to do, and I'm going to quote Luke Lemons, who we'll have on the show at one point.
Oops, yeah, let's have him on the show.
It's basic shapes.
Yep.
If you look at your structures and the things that you're doing on your model railroad as basic shapes, you can build anything you want. Oh, pro tips are supposed to be at the end. That's not my pro tip. That's a good one.
That's boy, we're giving away a lot of free content here already on show number 1. We won't have much left for show number 2 and beyond if we give it all away right now. But Mike, that's fantastic. So
thank you.
You've been keeping busy then. Sounds like you're you have a layout there, the Farland Terminal Railroad.
Yep, Farland Terminal Railroad. It's just it's a fictional railroad.
Okay.
Again, loosely based around a railroad I used to work for in Minnesota called Dakota Rail. It's no longer there, unfortunately. It's just a really neat little switch engine and a handful of cars trundling down the main line, serving a handful of customers, and that's it. It was a 44-mile short line that really embodied what short line railroads were. It had bad to mediocre track at best.
Yep.
And I was part of the section crew, so I contributed to that. It used a pair of old Milwaukee Road SW1200s. I want to say we had 7 customers total on the whole railroad in the 44 miles.
44
one
miles.
of them was 3M. We did switch the 3M plant where they made I want to say they made duct tape and other adhesive products at that plant in Hutchinson, Minnesota. So yeah, it was fun. So I've always been enamored with that railroad, and I thought, well, I got to do something. And S-Scale allows me to do that on a really, really cool level. So
that's awesome. Hey, so you are you've been modeling lately. That's for sure. You've been getting it done.
Yep. So what about you? Look, turn around and tell us about what you got going on. Flip this bad boy around because I remember coming over to the house and seeing that as an empty void at one point.
Yes. So we'll bring me up on here, and I'll get out of I gotta know my spots here, but what I have going on behind us here is the second take of the Mascoutin Valley Railroad. So for those of you that have been following my modeling journey, so to speak, I've been back and forth between the Mascoutin Valley and the Chicago Northwestern Marshline subdivision. So for fans of the Marshline, I'm not giving it up. So I'm still modeling the Marshline, but the Marshline is going to be a modular railroad. So I'll be building that through Fremo modules. And right now I'm going through and putting up a marsh scene, but my home layout, my permanent layout is going to be the Mascoutin Valley. So it takes place in northern Wisconsin. So you can see behind me here that there's a photo backdrop that I actually made myself. The backdrop is...
which looks gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you. The backdrop is some pictures that I took with my cell phone while I was out fishing for muskie. So basically, you want to get a nice tree line, go out on a boat in the middle of a lake near shore, and you'll be able to capture these panoramic views of wooded areas. So
basically, obviously, you were the fish are biting so well, you had time to do that.
So they say that muskie fishing is the fish of 10,000 casts. This was somewhere between 8,345 and 8,350. I took a few pictures, and then another 1,000 casts or so later, I finally caught a couple of fish. But yeah, so been working on the section that you see behind me here. This is going to be a storage track area. So a lot of the, if anyone follows the Escanaba and Lake Superior or any defunct railroads in the northern Midwest, a lot of the old trackage is now converted to storage track, where people keep, or the railroads keep cars for various leasing outfits or other railroads, just keeping them on the rails. And then I'll be working on completing that. And then we do have a branch that goes out through the divider here and goes on to the other side of the room. So my layout overall is, I think right now it's 16 by 20. And then this will expand it as time goes on. But yeah, that's the big thing I've been working on here, is starting and getting this scene set.
So what do you have down there, Andy, where your pink, I'm assuming that's pink extruded foam that
That's
you
right.
have that based on.
Yep.
And then when you cut that down, what's the white stuff right there? What do you have? Is that just plaster or what is that?
No, this white stuff is extruded foam, white extruded foam that I got out of Amazon packaging and stuff like that. And I just glued that down. And then what I'll do with all of that is, so if you can see over here, I've covered all of that with basically celluclay, or what they call ground goop. And I cover all of that. And then you can see I got the green foam, the florist foam in there as well that I've been using for shaping the hills. And I got some rock here as well, some plaster molds to simulate a rock cut. And then we'll have a pond in here as well. So really kind of like a little bog type thing going on. So we'll have that.
I can't wait to see how you do the water. Because I have always been terrified to pour water.
Yeah, so
and I can't wait to see how you do it and what you come up with to do that. So yeah. That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a neat little trick, and it's probably not going to be a conventional thing like using Envirotex or something like that. It's going to be something different.
As long as it's not shaving cream. I remember I did a project one time, and it was when I was in grade school, and I wanted to make water, and I thought, well, blue shaving cream would work, because I didn't know it would expand and turn foamy. And it expanded and turned foamy, so don't use shaving cream, people.
And again, Mike, giving away the pro tips here before the end of the podcast, so stick to the script.
Right.
And then the second thing that I've been working on is this. And you're thinking, what the hell is this? This is an old Linksys router. And the Mascoutin Valley is going to be powered by the ESU cab control wireless system.
Nice.
And I noticed that the Wi-Fi, I guess, router that comes with the ESU system was a little underpowered to get to the other side of my basement. So I went ahead and connected this router to it using a Cat5 Ethernet cable. And I just plugged it right into the back of the command station. And now I've amplified my Wi-Fi reach so I could be standing out on the second floor of my house or out in the garage, and I can run trains in my
Well, you
basement.
talk about me giving away pro tips.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what's yeah. And then the tip at the end that I'm going to be giving is extremely underwhelming. So yeah, I mean, if you make it to the end, I mean, get ready. This has been a nonstop thrill ride. But and then I got a couple of kits that I'm working on as well. So, and I'll be doing an article for Tony Cook's Model Railroad News. We'll be reviewing some AccuRail 2-bay covered hoppers that were produced for the Chicago and Northwestern Historical Society.
Very nice.
Yeah, so
really nice.
They were specifically used in bentonite service for the iron mines up north.
Yep.
And we're gonna do some prototype review of the models, and then also give a little shout out to the Historical Society as well. So that's what's on my workbench going forward here, and it's going to be a busy winter because I have a lot of projects that I want to get through.
Yep, me too. I have a ton of things I need to get taken care of. That's why it's a good thing we're going to have a lot of shows to be able to go over what we all have to do, right?
Right, to keep us accountable for actually getting some modeling done. So
yeah. Should we move on to the next segment? I'm actually really excited about this segment because I came up with it.
Yeah, Mike, this is your part of the show, so I'll flip the screen back over to you, and then why don't you take us in here?
Okay. This segment is called Short Line of the Show, and what the plan is basically to find wholly owned, separately owned short line railroads around the United States and Canada that are not owned by one of the large, what would you call them, Andy? Not even a holding company. One of the big short line rail conglomerates.
Well, I think that's just it.
Genesee and Wyoming, a Watco, Omnitrax, what is there? Patriot Rail.
Yeah.
The Pioneer Rail. Yep. Things of that nature. Now, that's not to say that we don't like any of those railroads. It's just that those all have a corporate identity, and their power is not really unique to its own railroad. So, because like with Genesee and Wyoming, everything is for the most part painted up orange with the black stripes on the bottom. Sharp looking engines. Love the paint scheme. Actually, I really do like that paint scheme.
I'm not a fan. Are
you seriously?
I'll die on that hill. I am not a fan of the Genesee and Wyoming paint scheme.
Wow, that's I don't know.
I'm the only one
doing this then. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, can we agree that Watco's paint scheme is nothing to be desired either?
The black and yellow, meh. I like the Wisconsin
but the WSOR stuff, the Wisconsin Southern stuff is, I don't like the way the back of those engines look. I just don't like the way they do it, that straight stripe across the back. I'm not a big fan. I kind of like
they should have went with the chevron there, but
with the chevron look. I kind of like that.
But I'm not the graphic designer that came up with it.
No, but that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're trying to avoid are railroads like that. And I'm going to try to hit one in every one of the states in alphabetical order. States by alphabetical order. So this first show, we're going to go down all the way down south to Alabama. Okay? Alabama. Okay? And now, this is a separate railroad, but it's a subsidiary. Does that still count? I think it should count because there's only the two of them. It's not really a conglomerate. It's not this big whole thing. This railroad is owned by the Mississippi Export Railroad,
Okay.
and it's called the Alabama Export Railroad. And believe it or not, I have show notes.
Wow. This is
All right, I'm gonna pop onto. I'm gonna share my screen here quick. I'm gonna pop onto. Let's see here. I'm gonna pop onto the. Oopsies. Onto the railroad's website, and there we have it. It's the Alabama Export Railroad.
nice.
These are the only 2 locomotives that they own.
Okay.
Sharp paint scheme. Very.
For the audio playback, what are the locomotives there, Mike?
The 2 locomotives are a pair of GP38-2s,
Okay.
both of former Louisville and Nashville heritage, like original
Okay.
owners were Louisville and Nashville.
Nice.
They had a slew of different of owners. The paint scheme is a all black bottom from the sill down,
Yep.
and a burgundy, like a dark maroon, dark burgundy kind of color. Not
Yeah.
really a Wisconsin central burgundy maroon.
I would almost call it garnet red.
Garnet red would be a very good way of putting it. Yeah, and the same or a similar paint scheme to what HLCX, I believe that's Helm Leasing, has on theirs, with the half chevron nose and just solid white chevrons on the nose, and then just plain. It's a very plain, basic paint scheme. But the beautiful thing about this is if you're starting out and you're trying to, and you want to start building a railroad, this railroad is 12 miles long.
Wow.
That's it. And it has, they serve 8 customers in and around the downtown Mobile, Alabama area.
Nice.
But on top of the 8 customers, they serve 7 and connect with 7 different railroads.
And some class 1s too, right?
Yeah, they connect. Yeah, they connect with the Canadian National, CSX, Kansas City Southern, Norfolk Southern, and then this railroad is uber interesting. I almost picked this, but I didn't know how I was going to work it in. CG Railway. This railroad has 900 miles of territory. Notice I said territory, not track.
Okay.
It's, from what I understand about this, is it's a barge service between the Port of Mobile and I can't even begin to pronounce the name of the town, but a location in Mexico. And it's like railroad barge service of some sort.
Do they ferry cars across, or is it just
the way I understand it? Yes.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
It's like a modern day car ferry operation that goes between in international waters. I might be completely wrong about that and totally misunderstood.
Okay.
But I want to do a little bit more research on it because it just sounds too cool.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put a prompt out there for our listeners and our viewers. In the comments of sections of these shows, or send us a comment, or hit us up on our Facebook page. Why not, if anyone knows what's going on with is it the CGR and the expansive 900 miles of territory and how that service runs, hit us up. Let us know how that goes. That would be awesome.
I think that is the reporting marks too there, Andy, is CGR, the CG Railway. Yeah,
the CG Railway.
But then the Alabama Export Railroad also connects up with the Terminal Railroad Alabama State Dock.
Yeah.
TASD. I'm sure everybody around the country has seen TASD boxcars.
Yep.
That's what it means. And then they also connect up with Alabama and Gulf Coast, AGC.
Nice.
So, I haven't figured out exactly what their customer base is, but if you scroll down, like if you go on their website, here's a real quick little blown up map. It shows where they connect up with everybody in a general proximity of where they connect with everybody, and then get rid of those, and then you can see where the basic routing is. This dark part is the basic routing. It's not a lot.
No.
But they also they have a lot of services that they offer. And as you can see on here, they car storage, track repair. They have transload facilities. All really, really cool things that we could, if we were looking to build a smaller layout, like an HO scale, I think this would be an awesome bedroom size layout, or like
There you go. Yeah.
maybe a shelf layout in the basement of some sort.
Yep.
It'd be fantastic for something like that. Real narrow shelves too. You could get away with it in like a probably a 10 or 12 inch area.
Sure.
And it's just kind of a neat looking railroad. So this is our short line railroad of the show.
Mike, this is fantastic. So I really like this because for a person that wants to, try and recreate a real model railroad, there's a low bar of entry here. You only need 2 locomotives. So with locomotives costing as much as they do, today, if you want to get 2 real nice, sound decoder locomotives, you only need 2 of them. And then you get the diversity of rolling stock, the different freight cars. I think that's, with all the different railroads that it serves and connects with, you can pretty much have any modern day traffic on your railroad. So you kind of get the best of everything, and then you get a crash course in operations with all the switching opportunities and the interchanges with the Class 1. So if for our listeners out there, this is, and you're not sure what to do, picking a short line like this one could be a great entry point to build for your first model railroad.
Absolutely, because you don't need to have the gargantuan railroad basement empire to get started on doing things. You can go with something small, hone your skills, and work your way up to that.
Yep.
I know a lot of people that we know. You and I both,
Myself,
Andy,
yeah.
we've done it ourselves.
Yeah.
And I've actually reverted back since I come back over to S-Scale. I reverted back into the smaller layout type thing to try to help hone my skills because I really didn't have a choice.
Right.
But so
good 4x8 layout too. I mean, you could get a 4x8 sheet of plywood and start with this as well. So I think this is a winner.
Yeah, it's I liked it a lot. This is going to be good. Now, here's the question. Do I skip Alaska or go right to Arizona?
Oh man.
Alaska's only got the one railroad.
Well, maybe a little showcase on their one railroad, wouldn't hurt. I got going on up here, with the old 5.
Let me stop sharing here. Yeah, there we go.
So, this old guy here.
Yep.
Right. So for our viewers out there, maybe take a look at that the next time. And I think it's kind of cool to give a quick history segment on the prototype. So yeah.
Well, fair enough. Then that's what it'll be. The next short line of the show, ladies and gentlemen, the Alaska Railroad. That's going to be
a preview into the next episode. That's good foreshadowing. Awesome, man. We're 33 minutes in here, and we've gotten through 2 segments of the show.
And now this is the next part of the show, is the part where we stop being friends.
Yeah, right. This is it. This is the knockdown drag out.
And for those that are watching and listening at home, we are not going to do this every single episode. This is because it's the first episode, we kind of thought that it would be, I'm going to use a big fancy French word, apropos. Huh? You like that? To start with the state of the hobby. You like that?
You know what? And going against what we said there, I'm actually going to agree with you on this point. Because I think if this podcast takes off and we're here for a year, we can go back and have a nice little replay
Yeah.
of what the state of the hobby we thought it was and what it is the year after. So we can kind of call BS on some of the stuff that I probably will say, because I'll have changed my mind 16 times by then. But I think this is going to be a fun little segment anyway. So,
and the beautiful thing is we'll have the ability to edit. So you'll be able to say, hey, wait a minute. Do you remember a year ago you said this, and hit the play button and say, and here I am pop up on the screen saying this. And
let's go back and roll that beautiful bean footage.
Let's roll the beautiful bean footage.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a fun little call us out on our own BS here. So, but okay.
I am going to defer to you to start this one off.
Okay. So state of the hobby. I guess in my limited expertise on the whole subject of model railroading, I'm gonna talk about my first point here is the vendors, and I'm hoping that you and I can disagree on this. So from a vendor standpoint, I feel that the state of the hobby is pretty strong. Now, me being in HO scale, I think I can comfortably say that with some of the models that are coming out, the availability. I'm getting new release info pretty much by the week here from various vendors in the hobby. Like I just saw the new Athearn releases, and then I think the technology that's coming along with some of the vendors. This Aurora miniatures.
I tell you what, dude, that guy almost makes me want to go back to HO.
Yeah.
Between them and Rapido, I can't.
Yeah. So the locomotive manufacturers and even the rolling stock manufacturers have really stepped up in the last 5 years. And this Aurora miniatures, I almost could not believe it was true. They're putting out the Draper Taper SD60s, right?
Yes.
For Canadian,
but with the ultimate twist.
The ultimate twist. So this is why I say the state of the hobby is in a real good spot, at least from my perspective. Is this company they're releasing a product that's going to have rotating radiator fans in the model.
That's insane.
Isn't it? It's crazy. So the model just, and I've only seen a couple of shots on Facebook and the internet, but the model is up there with the scale trains and the Rapido in terms of the detail and the fidelity. And then they go and they ruin it all by making it ridiculously detailed with actually working rotating fans. And it's coming with ESU Loc sound, of course. And I'm really excited. If this is where we're jumping off at now, I can't wait to see what the hobby's going to have to offer in the next few years.
And if I remember right, that company is a huge player in Japan.
Are they really?
I believe so. They do like a lot of Japanese model or Chinese modeling or railroad models or something along those lines.
Okay.
And this is like their first endeavor into North American railroads, and they did this. Oh man, I tell you, it's if they pull this off, that's impressive.
And I gotta say, like I saw the price point. The price point was fairly competitive with the big name manufacturers that are out there right now, like Scale Trains and Rapido, and even like Athearn and Intermountain and the like there. So I don't model CN, but might have to pick one of these up.
but if you model a railroad such as I might get this wrong, so please, if anybody's out there that models this, please correct me. The Dakota, Missouri Valley, and Western or something like that. it's a short line up in South Dakota or North Dakota.
Okay.
They have those. They have some Draper Taper SD60s.
Really?
Oh my God, and they're sharp. Are they sharp? Yeah, that's
man.
that's a future railroad again for when
Yeah.
we get to the ends.
Maybe a Draper Taper would look good in the old maybe the old Mascoutin Valley colors there.
Hey, there's nothing saying that the Mascoutin Valley wasn't leasing one to test.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think
because that
so.
would be right around. That would be right around the edge of your era. So
yeah, maybe a little proto freelance action there with the Draper Taper. That would look pretty sharp pulling ore loads through the layout.
Yeah. So what else? What else? How else are you feeling about the hobby?
Well, again, I'm feeling that from a vendor standpoint, it is really strong, and I think the internet has done wonders for connecting modelers. So from a community standpoint, I think it's also very strong, but I also think that it's the internet and things like YouTube and podcasts are. I don't know if I'm gonna probably stick my own foot in my own mouth here, but I want to say like they're starting to replace the train show and the hobby shop. The camaraderie at the hobby shop. I think with a lot of the retailers being online now, it's just fitting that even the camaraderie and the community now move to the online segment. And before I was I could only talk with people in my area, and now I'm talking with people all over the country and the world about my interest in the hobby. So I think from that standpoint, it's done the model railroading as a hobby is very strong. So I'm waiting for some counterpoints here, Mike. I've been talking for a little bit, so
I can't argue with anything you're saying. You're talking about HO scale. You're talking from the King's courtroom. I'm telling you,
I'm waiting for the scrappy fighter from Philadelphia to come out here.
I've got nothing on any of that because you're 100% right. I think like what you just got done saying is the like your cottage industries places. It doesn't take a whole lot to put up a website and throw a couple of pictures of some products on and put a couple of links on it to be able to purchase something. It doesn't take a whole lot of doing that, and you're seeing more and more of these smaller guys doing that. The advent of 3D printing, I think, has been enormous for the hobby. Yes, Shapeways, absolute pioneer in being able to do that stuff, but now you can start doing these things at home. And if you look right here, right there, that's my 3D printer, right?
Okay.
Let me see if I can do this without washing myself out.
Here it goes. All right, everyone brace yourself.
There, right here. This is my trusty 3D printer right here. So, I think that has helped. I can't disagree with anything you've said regarding HO scale.
Okay.
Coming over to my neck of the swamp, and things have not been good manufacturer-wise. We have had S Helper Services, the gentleman that owned S Helper Services. He retired, sold his stuff to MTH.
Okay.
And now MTH has since sold all of the S scale stuff and all of their HO stuff to Scale Trains.
Yeah.
That's a glimmer, but it's going to be a down the road thing, and I'll just have to wait and see what Shane Wilson comes up with. It's just going to be, just going to have to see. If I know anything about Shane, he's going to put, he's not going to throw something out there half-assed. He's going to do it. His first thing is going to be a showstopper, just like it was with the Big Blow and the SD40-2. It's going to be good. It's
Sure.
just a matter of time, and people just need to learn to be patient. And I guess that's kind of the negative portion of the hobby that I see right now is everybody is ridiculously impatient. Um, they have been so spoiled by these manufacturers that they part of the reason why I got out of HO is exactly that, is because if I want to build a locomotive, I'm going to go ahead and do the research. I'm going to buy the details or make the details. I'm going to get the engine to as close as I can to what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm going to go from there. I'm going to have a sense of pride out of it.
Sure.
Now the manufacturers will go and do road specific detailings per run. And you might have a run like, say, Athearn Genesis. I don't know. Let's talk. I don't know what kind of engine. Let's just talk about like a GP40-2.
Sure.
They'll have the chassis system, the scoop pilots on the front, and they'll have other railroads that have no pilot, and other railroads that have the snow plow. There is no more generic locomotives out there. There is no more Athearn Blue Box, which mechanically the Athearn Blue Box by today's standard was pretty rough, but it served a really good function because you learned how to tune it. You learned how to mechanically make it better.
Right.
But you don't have that because out of the box, these things are they're like works of art.
Right.
But yet that's all you're doing is taking them out of a box. So I guess myself personally, in S scale, we don't have that. We don't have very many. If I'm trying to think, I don't know that we have any ready, quote unquote, road specific, ready to run locomotives. American Models has stuff that you can come out, and the problem with S scale is you have Lionel, the 3-rail Lionel people. You have the high rail people who want to be scale on everything except for the wheels and couplers. And then you have the guys like me who are all scale and
right.
The 2-rail scale guys. And it's a big divide. And now that divide just got a little harder because it's just been announced that here not too long ago that Ron Bashista, the owner of American Models, passed away unexpectedly.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I just found this out from our good friend Tony. Tony Cook here not too long ago.
Sure.
And it's been all over the internet on the S scale stuff, so it's not anything that's a secret. But I was shocked, and that leaves me wondering. We now no longer have a major. American Models is still there. Yep. But in what condition, since with his passing, what condition are they going to be in going forward? And that basically leaves S scale with 0 major manufacturers that are active right now that I know of. I might be completely wrong on American Models condition right now, but the death of the owner usually is not something that is, a big stepping stone.
Yeah. Sure.
It's usually a falling off point. So, again, I really feel bad for the Bashista family. Thoughts and prayers go out to you guys. Really, really sucks. I've met Ron several times. He's a good guy. He did a lot for S scale.
Sure.
But there's a big gap here in our scale now. So my viewpoint on the scale, the where the hobby is skewed. Because I know that the hobby for fact is thriving pretty much everywhere but in S scale. And it's just you're kind of on an island. So hopefully things will get better in the year coming up. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, well, you just keep on scratch building what you got, and that's all we can go. I liked what you said about social media replacing and these things replacing train shows. Again, another minor mishap for the O and S scale community is the Indianapolis show.
Sure.
has recently announced that they are no longer going to put on the show starting in 2022. So this one in 2021, here this last, what was it, September or whenever it was, October, that was the last show. So now we have no scale specific show at all. The RPM in St. Louis is still there.
Yeah,
That's good. Train Fest, unfortunately,
that
not
took a
around.
digger.
That's that, and I am going to make a vow. I am not going to get on and jump on that. It's just, we both have a very similar opinion to that.
Yeah,
and it's just nothing that we really need to. That horse has been ridden, and shot, and buried already,
and beat
and
twice.
beat.
We've beaten that dead horse twice.
With any kind of luck, something will, there'll be a phoenix rising out of that somewhere down the line. But we will, we'll have to. That remains to be seen. So, other than the St. Louis show, the Lisle, Illinois RPM, I don't think that's the thing anymore.
What about? Isn't there a thing in Minneapolis called the Modelers Retreat?
There is. Ken Ziska does that, and I think that might be in association with the Twin Cities division of the NMRA. I think it might be, but it might be something separate. But Ken Ziska is a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Is that exclusive to NMRA members, or is that general public folk, and it's just sponsored by the Twin Cities division?
I don't think it's not a closed door thing. I think if you know about it, you can go to it.
Sure.
But there again, it's a small thing. But they have some really cool. They've got some excellent modelers in that Twin Cities area.
Yeah.
Bob Rivard and Thomas Gazier and Ken Ziska and Ben Truesdale, and I mean the list goes on. Because if I don't say his name, I am going to. Why can't I think of his name? I know Sue the Milwaukee Road.
Oh yeah, William Sampson.
Yeah, sorry, Bill. Sorry, Bill. I COVID brain. So there's some awesome modelers in Twin Cities, and they're doing some really cool
Joe Binish and Tom Gazier and Greg Dahl.
If I had to give if I had to give the hobby a scale, a number from 1 to 10, I would say right around a 6.
Okay. So we kind of griped, right? So, in the state of the hobby, you give it a 6. What are maybe some of the like for S scale? You obviously have opinions on what's going to make it better, right?
Yes.
Do you want to, if get those out there, and maybe we can argue about those?
Yeah. You're just itching for a fight tonight,
I just want to I'm feeling punchy, Mike. I misspelled your name on the hosts thing there. So this is.
Did you really?
I just changed it a while ago. So
that goes to show you how much I pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, I put an E. Mike Ostertag.
So what'll make S scale better?
Yeah.
Equipment wise, there are 3 pieces of equipment, in my opinion, that are like game changing pieces of equipment. The first one being an EMD GP38-2.
Gotta have it.
In S scale, there is a gap between the GP35 and an SD60. Do you know how many locomotives were produced by EMD and GE in that 25-30 year time frame?
A lot.
And HO scale covers almost every single one of them, with a handful of exceptions. They've even got the SDL 39s coming out. Ridiculous.
Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts. I never thought I'd ever see those out in plastic, and I actually have got 2 of them on order from Scale Trains because I got to have them.
Yep.
So,
ditto.
But that engine can be the catalyst for so many, I think it's like 7 or 8 different locomotives, because they all share the same wheelbase, the same frame, the fuel tank arrangements. All of that are done with the 38, the 40, 38-2, or the 39, the 38-2, 40, 39-2, 40-2,
Right.
the GP50, and the
Let's say the 50
GP60.
all sit on the same frame, basically.
They all are on the same frame with the exact same wheelbase. Truck side frames are different. Your sills are different and stuff like that, but the frame itself. So you build one frame. Now you're just building shells that go on top of it. You
Right,
build one
and
frame,
your
one
guts,
mechanism.
and the mechanism, right? So the mechanism would be the same for all those units as well. I mean, you look at if manufacturers would go and look back in history to the Athearn Blue Box GP 38s, 40s, the 50s, they all had the same mechanism.
Yep.
You could switch the shells out on any of them.
Yep. And that all started with that 38-2 when they came out with that new tooling and the scale width hoods, and they actually took the time to
weren't this wide.
Yeah, they weren't an extra foot wider than what they were supposed to be, which you know what though? If they're modeled right, they don't look that bad.
Oh, I have a pair of Milwaukee Road GP 38-2s, the old blue boxes, and a Sioux line, and I still have them. They still run.
Yeah, they function. They might be loud, but hey, whatever. You can correct that. I mean, they make all sorts of cool ways to correct those things. But second piece of equipment is one that I am insanely jealous of in the HO community, because last count, I believe there's 26 variants of this car in HO scale. And that is the Pullman Standard 4750 cubic foot three bay covered hopper. I tell you what, we are stuck with. I wish I would have thought about this. I'd have brought one in, or I think I have one right behind me. But anyway, we're stuck with the 434 rib arrangement, low hip, 4427 Pullman Standard covered hopper, which was built back in the 60s. Production on those ended sometime in the late 60s, early 70s. And to this day, there's still some of them out there.
They're still milling around.
Still milling around, and not very many in grain service so much, but a lot more in like lime service and your other bulk
like
stuff for your non-perishable, non-food industry services.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been modified, rebuilt, and whatever. We need that covered hopper in the scale. That would be a huge game changer. The last car is a really weird one for me to actually say out loud, because to me, a boxcar is a boxcar is a boxcar. Even though I know better than that, working for the railroad, I know
right.
But a Gunderson 50-foot single door and double door high cube boxcar.
Okay.
A lot of railroads had those, and they still run them and operate them now. I think they started being built in like the 70s, or early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in the per diem era, sometime.
Sure.
When those were coming around. But there's such a gap. If you wanted to model 1940s, 1950s, go ahead, do it all day long. You got enough stuff to do out there, because there's all sorts
in S scale.
In S scale.
Yeah.
Nothing if you want to model from like this, very little, I should say, if you want to model the 70s through today. And if you want to model today, you're going to have a really tough time.
Would you say, Mike, that you are SOL?
Man. You just waited all night for that?
I had that one loaded up. I was
queued up.
I was waiting in the chamber.
I would say you would be correct. So I don't want to say that there's there's not much light at the end of the tunnel right now in S scale, and I'm hoping that those tables turn here pretty soon, and I'm sure that they will. Things are just too awesome in the whole world right now, technologically speaking, to not come and make it better.
Yeah, and I think S scale, just in general, manufacturers in this vein, really take advantage of guys like me and you that were, S scale's a step up from HO in terms of size. My dexterity's not as good as it used to be. My eyesight's starting to go, right. So, having the larger scale, but almost like being the end scale of the large scale, so you could still get a big layout, and still have that, be able to work on a model. And I just think, I've been tempted. I've been tempted to try S scale, but um, I don't know. I know
It's
that.
it wouldn't be a leap that I would recommend doing on a large scale right away. If you wanted to try something, just grab something. Your price points are very similar to HO scale.
There you go.
So, you do have that. However, your locomotives are like kind of basically Athearn Blue Box or kits.
Right.
And the kits are not for the faint of heart. I mean,
No,
I
I've seen you
have
put.
yeah, I have flat brass U23Bs here and SW1500s that are flat
Right.
brass kits that I have to solder together. And they're still in the box for a reason. So, because it hasn't rained that hard yet. Have we thoroughly given the state of the hobby our opinion? You think?
I think we gave it a glancing blow. I think there's all sorts of other facets. I know we kind of focused on the equipment, but there's publications, there's um, hobby organizations, and
Do
some
we
other
want to go
stuff
down
that.
that road?
Well, maybe it's more of a discussion suited for a round table, where
Oh, that's a good idea.
where those folks can defend themselves, when we come at them with the pitchforks and torches. So,
And I know just the guy to try to have at the head of the table.
yeah, hey, uh, we'll see how it goes, and we'll just come back and say, well, so and so denied our request for an interview, and that's fine. But I think from a glancing blow, I think we did a pretty solid job of talking about equipment, and I really like the point of view that you bring from S scale, because in HO scale everything is sunshine and roses, and
Yep.
for other folks in other scales it may not be that way. I mean, even N scale, had its rise, but I'm starting to see that vendors are not so quick to bring out equipment now on N scale. So
Isn't that crazy how that
I know,
works?
I know.
Isn't it just nuts?
It's crazy. It's crazy to me how it ebbs and flows, but
Yeah, it's just it's insane. And then I don't even know how to start talking about O scale, because O has the same situation with us that we have an S, where you have the 3-rail guys and the 2-rail scale guys.
yeah,
And there's a lot of 3-rail equipment out there and not as much 2-rail scale stuff. And
right. And then
yeah,
and I know a couple of 3-railers, they all went from the throes of being a prototype HO scale, stick to the fidelity, and now they're 3-rail O scale, and they couldn't be
yep.
happier.
Yeah,
So,
I think I'm just going to have to build a railroad in my backyard. That's all I'm going to have to do. Like
and
Adam Pinellas, I'm going to have to put a 7.5 inch scale,
garden scales and 7.5 inch,
a 7.5 inch gauge railroad in the backyard. I got enough room. I could probably pull that off. I don't
F
think the neighbors would
scale.
like. Yeah,
Well,
F.
I think that could be a show in itself. Is let's talk about the different scales, and the one we won't talk about is HO, and
Ooh.
and let's talk about that, because there are some, we haven't talked even about narrow gauge yet, and so in terms of diversity, I think there's tons of opportunity for the hobby in terms of
Oh my
what you
God.
want to model.
That's why
From
this hobby is so awesome. It is
it
so hot,
is
because it doesn't matter who you are or what you like. There's something there for you
right.
someplace.
Right.
You know,
And if you look at what's going on our respective workbenches, you're cutting up styrene and I'm playing with old routers, Wi-Fi routers. So think about
right?
that, right? So from the spectrum of, chopping up pieces of plastic to integrating electronics into your model railroad. The sky's the limit. So I think it's a great time to be a model railroader.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think we might revisit this along the
I
way.
I
And
think
I
we
think
need
we
to
almost
look at
have
it
to. I
again.
think I like that aspect about talking about everything but HO. I kind of like that because
Yeah, why not?
there's a lot of stuff. Get into TT a little bit, and
Yeah,
we don't have to talk
Z
about.
scale.
Oh, we don't have. What about all the scales they have down in Australia?
Yeah,
Martin,
double
our buddy
O.
Martin Jenkins.
Yeah,
Martin Jenkins would probably have a few things to say about that.
yeah, for sure. I think it's I think we need to maybe open up that can of worms and see how it all shakes out. So
Yeah,
maybe get a couple of representatives on a big roundtable call here with from O scale and some of the more non-typical scales out there. That'd be fun.
absolutely. I agree with you.
Cool.
Sounds fun.
So I think we're cruising right along, just eclipsing the 1 hour mark now. And the goal with our shows here on the second section podcast, we want to keep them to an hour so they're at least somewhat marginally digestible, or you can play us on double speed. But I wouldn't do that because you really lose the camaraderie and all the context and the hidden cues there, the nonverbal stuff. So,
Right.
but we're coming to the end here, and let's land the plane. So our last segment tonight's going to be just a quick tip that you can take and use on your model railroad at home. So Mike, did you have anything tonight that you wanted to show?
I did, and I'm gonna say this again because I did say it earlier in the show. If you're having problems thinking you can't do something like this, you're wrong. You absolutely can do things like this. And I'll show you why you can do things like this. When you look at this building, what do you see? An engine house? Do you see just a structure? I see 4 rectangles with 5 triangles with a whole bunch of different other shapes connected together. It's just shapes. Our good friend Luke Lemons taught me that a long, long time ago, and I have never forgotten that. This hobby, when you're trying to build things, when you're looking at things out in the field, when you're doing your research or you're trying to figure out how to do something on a building, break it down into its basic components of square, rectangle, circle, triangle, things of that nature, and realize that this end here, this is a rectangle. This is a whole rectangle with a triangle on top. That's all it is. So once you have your basic geometric shapes figured out, then it's just a matter of putting those together to make what you want look the way you want.
Yep.
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. It's all right to fail. It's okay to do that. If you were a baseball player, you only hit 3 out of every 10 baseballs, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So
right.
You know what? It's okay to fail. You don't have to be, the world's greatest model railroader right out of the gate. Learn, make mistakes, ask questions. But always remember, it's always just everything is basic shapes.
And you know what? I'm gonna jump on here and just tack onto your tip there or advice. There's a couple of models that I did when I was a teenager that I kind of messed up, but as my skill set advanced, I went back and I redid them, and they turned out really good. And some of them were just basic Tyco kits, like buildings and stuff like that. So don't give up on that type of stuff as well. Like if you think your project didn't turn out the way it should have, or it didn't look the way you hoped, try it again, and maybe you'll learn something, and make it look really awesome the second, third time around. So don't give up on stuff either. I think that's another thing. Don't just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, and to piggyback onto what you just said, if you think here, I cut this up. And for those listening at home, it's part of a cupola caboose. I cut it up in order to make a transfer caboose, which I'll show at some point in time when I get around to it. It's in one of my containers back here. I'm not throwing this away. It might not look like anything, but the roof line on it can be used as like a gauge for the roof line of a boxcar if I need to.
Yeah.
Because they use the same type of box. They use a similar roof line or roof design.
Pattern, right.
Roof pattern. You can go and take and gauge and scale the spacing on, like, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but the spacing on the welds between there, you can you can use this to measure things off of. And then if you wanted to, you could turn this into, you could build a little end on it, throw a platform underneath here, and throw a couple, maybe make some goofy looking bobber caboose out of it.
There you go. Yeah.
Put a single 2 axles underneath it, and just,
there you go.
Who knows? You let your imagination run wild. But things like this, throw them in a box, and one day, if you need a piece or you need a part or you just want to play around, if you want to screw up something, do it on something like this. Take this to your airbrush, figure it out, learn how to airbrush on something like this, rather than wrecking in a $600 model or something.
There you go.
Not saying that anything's ever done like that.
But... yeah. That's all good points there, Mike.
Yep.
So I'll just share with you guys what I've been doing. I'll swing over and I'll adjust my camera here. So I got my workbench. One of the things that I've been doing for the marsh line is I'm creating, see if I can get that up in there, little cattails, right? There we go. Cattail, basically what I call the corn dog.
That's crazy.
And what I'm using here to create that is I'm cutting up a bunch of, see here, 28 gauge wire that I got at Hobby Lobby. It's they use it for making jewelry. So I went into the jewelry section. I got this cheap wire. I also use this for making brake lines underneath my rolling stock as well. It's nice, and you can bend it and shape it the way you want. It's a nice gauge. And then I have here in this container, all this is some brown modeling clay. And so what I do is I just pinch off a little bit. I roll it up in my fingers. Take my hobby knife, cut off just a little bit, roll it back up, take a wire, and then just smash it on there. And within a couple of seconds, you have a corn dog for your cattails and reeds on your layout.
So do you have any problems once that hobby clay dries? Have you had any problem with it cracking and falling off of there at all? Or?
No, I seal it up with a little paint.
Oh, so, okay. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance. Sorry.
Nope, that's all right. So I use I've been big into Vallejo paints lately. They're very common, and these are heavy on pigment. If I could talk, pigment. But this is what I use for the stock, and then I come back with a dark brown to essentially paint that corn dog, what I call it, or the seed head for the cattails or the bulrushes. So that's my modeling tip, using a couple of items that you might have laying around to add a detail to your layout at home.
That's awesome. No, every model railroad should have cattails on it. There's no excuse.
There's absolutely no excuse to not put the corn dogs out there.
Yep.
And then you could go to our friends over at Mini Prints, who are not sponsoring this, by the way, and again, open to sponsorships here, but order some birds that they have and then have them resting on top of the corn dogs. Make a real authentic marsh scene.
Yeah, one of these. Did they do the loons for Thomas Gazier's layout? Did they do the loons
I
for him?
think so, yes.
And then he's
And
got. I don't want to spoil, but he actually has a looped loon sound when you go to a certain spot on
yeah,
the layout. It
Tom,
actually, he's he's so ingenious with some of this stuff that he's got on his layout.
I've been watching Tom over a long time, and his layout has really gotten good, and some of the additional things that he's been bringing to the table with sounds, and I'm maybe even smells. I don't know. I hope maybe he's got a couple of pine air fresheners down there to really give you the feeling of the North Woods when you walk down there. That's one of the layouts I really want to see in the
me too.
here. So, okay, Mike. So that's pretty much it for the show. Did you have any other parting comments, alibis, or save rounds that you wanted to get out before we wrapped it up tonight?
Nope, not a single thing. I think we'll save more comments for down the road, I think.
Yeah, and for any of our viewers out there, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment down in the comment section. And if you're catching us on Spotify or your favorite place to listen to your podcast, you can always check in with us on our Facebook group, the Second Section Podcast Facebook group. And we look forward to having you guys tune in next time. So,
hey, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, from myself, Mike.
Thank
Adios.
you. Night.